There are parts of Minecraft that I'm not terrible at. I can make some decent builds, and I'm okay at redstone. Mechanically, however, I am not great. So today that changes. The skills I'll be focusing on can be broken down into 3 categories: movement, PvP, and general improvement. The movement skills I'll be focusing on are bucket clutches, parkour, traversing soul sand, block clutches, and speed bridging. For PvP, I'll be focusing on health management, spatial/situational awareness, and of course, actual PvP. The skills that fall under general improvement include getting better at caving, using keybinds instead of my mouse's scroll wheel, and nether navigation and preparation. However, before I can improve, I need to establish a baseline with some tests. The first tests were done in this practice world I threw together with some basic command blocks. First was bucket clutches, which has 4 levels. I made 4 out of 5 bucket clutches on levels 1 and 2, 2 out of 5 on level 3, and 1 out of 5 on level 4, for a total of 11 out of 20. Next up, for traversing soul sand, I timed how long it took me to reach the other side of this stretch, which was 20 seconds. Speed bridging used a timer system as well, and I crossed this gap in 50 seconds. The final test in this world was navigating another fortress, where I timed how long it took me to get 10 blaze rods and a wither skeleton skull on normal difficulty with a full set of iron armor, an iron sword, a shield, some blocks, and food, which took me 16 minutes and 9 seconds. The other tests were completed on various Minecraft servers. For parkour, I used a Mnecraft and timed how long it took me to complete an easy, medium, and hard parkour map. The easy map took me 2 minutes and 40 seconds, the medium map took me 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and the hard map took me 43 minutes and 17 seconds. For PvP, I logged on to PvP Club and completed 20 duels with the basic sword kit, of which I won 6, with 3 levers. And for block clutches, I used a technique map on Bed Wars practice, which took me 77 minutes and 41 seconds, which, yeah, not great. Unfortunately, the general improvement skills are a bit harder to track. Currently, for caving, I avoid caving like the plague, and if I have to go caving, I use water caves to avoid mobs. Unfortunately, this makes getting ores difficult, so I want to get more comfortable in regular caves. As far as nether exploration goes, I currently go in assuming I'm going to die, and take as little with me as possible. A piece of gold armor, stone tools, a bit of food, and maybe a stack of blocks. Obviously, that is not setting me up for success, so I need to figure out a better strategy. I also want to get better at finding nether structures, since all the times I've recently gone to the nether, I've had to use cheats to find a fortress, even when I was playing mod packs with map mods. So, let's go over how I'm going to improve. Once a day, I'm going to use the testing world I made to practice bucket clutches, soul sand traversal, and speed bridging for 5 minutes each. I am then going to do 1 nether fortress completion like I did for the testing. Then I will do 20 PvP duels, spend 20 minutes practicing a hard parkour map on Mnecraft, spend 20 minutes navigating the nether, and 20 minutes caving, as well as 20 minutes on the block clutch course, and find a new Minecraft tip or trick. The individual times might not sound like a lot, but altogether they add up to hours of time. I'll practice every day for 1 month, and then we'll redo the beginning test to see how much I've improved. Also, for keybinds, I'm just gonna sort out my keybinds and practice using them instead of my scroll wheel. So let's go. On the first day of practice, I somehow managed to complete the block clutch course in only a couple of minutes. Other than that, everything was pretty normal, except during nether exploration, I kind of ended up stuck in some tunnel system that didn't go anywhere except each other, so I exited the portal about 5 minutes early. Then, due to the amount of time practice was taking me and the fact that I do in fact have a life, I ended up lowering the number of duels from 20 to 10 and the time spent doing block clutches from 20 minutes to 10. Day 2 was a bad day for bucket clutches and speed bridging. I died a lot in the nether fortress, and it wasn't a great day for PvP either. Although, I did come up with a new strat for when your opponent accidentally drops their sword. Steal it. Wait, I took their sword, oh my gosh. Wait, give me the sword, yes. Revolutionary, I know. Nether exploration went better than day one, given that I wasn't stuck in closed-off tunnels this time. I found a bastion, and, well, I'll just let you see how that went. Maybe I should try and loot it? I've never looted a bastion before. And I mean, like, the point of this is to get better at nether stuff. So you know what? Sure, let's loot it. Probably gonna die. But you know what? It'll build character or something. I'm sure. Wait, how on earth do I do this? Not like this. Yeah, nope. Yeah, that... So, having failed miserably at that, I decided to stop exploring the nether early and instead watch a video on nether bastions. The one I watched was by The Aether Gamer and was called New Ultimate Minecraft Bastion Guide 1.21. It'll be linked in the description. For caving this time around, I went in with very little gear to simulate caving in the early game. I ended up spamming a bunch of torches, but it wasn't all that bad, actually. I ended up changing the practice routine again, changing the nether fortress from a completion to spending 15 minutes in it, and I lowered the time spent doing parkour from 20 to 15 minutes. On day 3, I was having a bad day. I tried to practice, but I couldn't get myself to put much effort into it, so I stopped early. I did, however, find some tips on water bucket clutching. Day 4, I was in a good mood, and the bucket clutch tips worked. I mean, look at this. And I'm not spamming, which makes the successes feel less like luck and more like I'm actually improving. Everything else went okay, but I didn't end up doing nether navigation, block clutches, or caving practice. Day 5, I had an AP exam at school, which ended up going 20 minutes past when school normally lets out, so I was annoyed and I didn't end up practicing. Day 6, I also didn't practice, but I did watch some Minecraft YouTubers who are good at PvP, so I'm like counting that as like studying, since it helps me realize I've really got to get better at manipulating situations to be more in my favor instead of, you know, running at a problem and dying, as I tend to currently. Day 7, I got sidetracked messing around with Minecraft mechanics I realized I hadn't really ever used, specifically the spear, mace, and trident. I also messed around with armor trims and ended up ranking the Minecraft music discs, but hey, it's technically PvP and movement practice. And so ended the first week. On day 8, the bucket clutches and speed bridging were pretty meh, and I thought I might be getting used to the timing of the bucket clutch levels, so I decided that I needed to be switching between them more. I did a bit of research instead of practicing the nether fortress, from which I learned that I really need to get better at keeping an escape plan in mind. Then, I practiced the mace and spear for PvP and movement, instead of, you know, what my practice routine says I should do. Day 9, I studied instead of doing movement practice. I watched a video on Minecraft combos, which will be linked in the description, and then practiced combos on wither skeletons in creative and then in survival with a wooden sword. I thought that I might be holding W for too long when trying to combo. Caving and nether nav are starting to feel a little redundant even though I haven't done them too much, which I'm counting as a good thing because it means that I'm more comfortable with doing them. Day 10, I once again didn't do the nether fortress. I practiced comboing in a practice world and then on PvP club. And at this point, I really need to learn how to get out of combos. I stopped parkour practice early because my hand tremors were kinda kicking my ass. Day 11, I had a bad day and didn't practice, and on day 12, it was a bad day for the mechanics practice world, so I stopped early. I then practiced PvP for a bit, but I didn't really do any movement practice. Day 13, I realized I've been slacking on movement practice, so I started with parkour. I didn't do great at parkour and stopped early, but I did practice miscellaneous movement in a single-player world. Then, when I was trying to do PvP, the server was lagging, so I stopped early. Day 14, I had another bad day, but I did do quite a bit of research. Part of the research was figuring out better keybinds than the ones I'm using currently, but I changed them again later, so I'll show you them then. On day 15, I made some block palettes so that I have some ready whenever I want to build something and don't have to come up with them on the spot. I then switched my keybinds to having drop item being G, offhand item being Q, my hotkey slot 1 being tab, my hotkey slot 2 being 2, hotkey slot 3 being 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6T, 7F, 8C, and 9X, with listing players being 1 and activating chat being the slash key. I don't know what it says about my hands that it's easier for me to hit 5 than it is for me to hit 1. As far as practice goes, bucket clutching went pretty badly, and it's hard for me to remember what all of the options are in a PvP duel. There were a couple players who were just kind of W keying that I definitely could have countered if I remembered how to. Then, when I was practicing parkour, I switched from hard to medium to easy maps, and then rage quit, which took about 7 minutes. I did practice caving, in that I had a Minecraft world that I had to go caving in, so I did. Day 16 was a pretty good day for bucket clutches and soul sand travel, but I had a band-aid on my pinky that made speed bridging annoying, so I stopped early. PvP went okay, and I realized I should probably figure out how to practice the jump reset thingies. And then I got sick. Like, throwing up when I ate anything too heavy sick. So, for obvious reasons, I didn't do any practice on day 17 or 18. On day 19, I was feeling well enough to practice. Bucket clutches, speed bridging, and soul sand travel went okay. I adjusted mouse sensitivity some during PvP because my aiming was kind of erratic, and also to hopefully help mitigate my hand tremors effect on my aim. I did end up stopping practice after PvP due to my hand tremors getting pretty bad, though I did make a document with all of my notes and keybinds and stuff for Minecraft. After day 19, I was back to being too sick to practice for the rest of the week. And then we were on to the final week of practice. On day 23, I realized that I need to click right before I think I do for water bucket clutches. I also figured out that I need to work on control with parkour. Everything else went relatively okay, although I do have the same problem with block clutches as I do with parkour. Day 24, I procrastinated a bit by working on my pre-planned block palettes, but after I finally started practicing, everything went pretty good. I've been working on being more conscious of my posture, I promise this is relevant, and because of that I ended up scooching my chair closer to my desk, which actually ended up helping my aim a little bit, I think. At the very least it makes my hand tremors a bit more manageable. I did some research on parkour, linked to that video in the description, and I ended up practicing tick timings in a practice world for a bit before going on to Manicube. I actually managed to complete a hard parkour map by just stopping once in a while to breathe and untense my hands and slowing down a bit. Basically, I need to work on staying calm and not getting jittery during parkour maps, as well as on taking time on jumps that I need to take time on. For block clutching and movement stuff, I practiced wall running and stacking in high pixel housing, then went to Bed Wars practice to do the courses. At the end of the practice session, I came to the conclusion that I really just need to work on not panicking / getting stressed with parkour and clutches. Day 25, I was feeling kind of bleh. It was a meh day for bucket clutches, but speed bridging and soul sand travel went okay. My hand tremors were really annoying, so I stopped after that. Day 26 was a pretty okay day for the mechanics I practiced in the single-player world, and for PvP. I also practiced parkour control in my single-player world, but I didn't get any footage of it. Day 27, I was pretty tired from school, which, you know, maybe I shouldn't have decided to do this the last month of school, but too late now. I practiced the early game some, so I did a good bit of caving practice. Day 28 was a pretty good day for bucket clutches, soul sand, and speed bridging, but I wasn't in a great mood, and I knew that if I practiced PvP or parkour, I would just make myself mad and not really be productive, so I practiced movement stuff in high pixel housing instead. Day 29 was fairly standard for practicing in my single-player world and PvP. I practiced with the spear some, trying to do that attribute swap thing that allows you to lunge multiple times in a row pretty quickly, but I decided I didn't really need to know how to do that to play the game the way I do, so I reset the keybind changes I had made and practiced using the spear to fight wither skeletons without getting hit instead. Day 30. The last day of practice, and it was kind of a terrible day for speed bridging. I added a spear to my Nether Fortress kit, and PvP and parkour both went okay. But hand tremors were starting to kick my ass a bit. I did manage to do some block clutch practice anyways, though. You might have noticed one thing is missing from my practice. I said that I would find one Minecraft tip or trick to help improve my gameplay every day, and I haven't really mentioned that at all. That is because I figured saying one each day would get annoying pretty fast, so let's go over them real quick. And then it will be time to retest my skills and see how much I've improved, if I've improved at all. So, let's go over the tips and tricks real quick. 1. Nether fortresses tend to spawn on the positive side of the x-axis. To find one, move north or south while keeping the x-axis positive. 2. Snout blocks and bastions can have gold behind them. 3. In Minecraft, whenever you look at a block, it shows black outlines around its border, which indicate that you are in reach of the block and you can interact with it. I use this for water bucket clutch timings. Number 4 is all of the enchants that you should have on your armor. To find where to dig for treasure chests, face north, line up with the center of the X, cover up your pointer, back up a tiny bit until a tiny bit of white is visible, and then dig down. 6. Spears do more damage the faster you are going. 7. You can distract angry piglins by throwing gold on the ground, unless it's the piglin you hit to anger the piglins. 7. Placing 4 blocks around a sapling above it will guarantee a large sapling. Use sea pickles to light up rivers and stop drowned from spawning. 9. You mine faster at max reach distance than up close. 10. You can use spears to keep wither skeletons at bay. 11. Speed potions exist. 12. Use TNT to gather sand. 13. Silverfish XP farms exist. You can hold a looting sword in your offhand to get the looting effect when using a bow. You can ignite creepers with flint and steel. You need 135 pieces of sugarcane for a full enchant setup, or 2.1 stacks, and 45 leather. Explosion damage is calculated based on your feet position. Dried kelp blocks make for a really good fuel source. Use campfires to cook food in the early game. Use a boat to help travel downwards in the nether. You can also do this in the overworld, obviously. It costs more XP to add an enchant that was made from 2 lower level enchantments to a piece of equipment than it does to add an enchantment that was bought that level. You can use a wall instead of a fence gate. Phantom membrane can be used to repair elytra. Mud can be turned into clay with dripstone. You can use the wither to mine deep slate. You can use a potion of fire resistance to bring snow golems into the nether. I feel like there's some sort of farm you can do with this. Probably not a very effective farm, but a farm nonetheless. Use a book and quill to keep track of coordinates and tasks. Spears are easier to use when you stand further back, and 40 degrees is the best angle to throw ender pearls at. Admittedly, some of this is just game mechanics I didn't know about, but it's still stuff I learned. And now it is time to see how much my skills have improved. There's one. Their skeleton skull is the problem. Oh shit. So, what are the final results? I went from 11 out of 20 bucket clutches to 16 out of 20. My easy parkour map time went from 2 minutes 40 seconds to 55 seconds. My medium parkour map time went from 2 minutes 33 seconds to 2 minutes and 3 seconds, and my hard parkour map time went from 43 minutes and 17 seconds to 25 minutes and 39 seconds. The time it took me to cross the soul sand went from 20 seconds to 15, and my speed bridging time went from 50 seconds to 23. Unfortunately, the wither skeleton skull drops hated me, and I did not beat my nether fortress time. I started winning at 6 out of 20 PvP matches, and in the end I won 7, so a bit of improvement in PvP. Maybe. Finally, my block clutch course completion time went from 77 minutes and 41 seconds to 1 minute and 42 seconds. Overall, I would say I improved quite a bit, especially given how, inconsistent I was with practicing. Oh, itty bitty baby.